Hey everybody and welcome back. I wanted to make a really quick video walking through a couple of different things that you may want to consider before making your mobile or web applications. So jumping straight in, don't forget to like and subscribe and check out the channel for new content. Now for this video, I'm making these apps in AppGyver. If you have any questions about AppGyver, I have tons of resources on my channel and free and paid resources over at codelessfix.com. So the first thing I want to cover is making sure that if you're using the duplicate and download functions, that you follow two pretty big rules. So for the duplicate, it's making sure that you're duplicating at the right time. For example, if I have this QR code scanner app that is available at codelessfix.com, and I want to make it for one for Android and one for iOS. Well, if I duplicate it when I first get started, then I need to double the work I do. Meaning, if I edit the Android one, I have to make that same functionality available on the Apple app. So you want to make sure that you're duplicating at the right time or making sure that that's even required, because you may be able to create the similar functionality for both applications and it may work out pretty well for you. Same thing with the download or export this app. When it's exported in its current state. So if you import it, you may need to do updates. For example, this app is pretty old, so if I go to the marketplace, I can go to the updates and install the relevant updates, and then save the app and now export that application. So those are a couple of quick ones. Now, a couple of other things to cover. So first and foremost, I can't say enough about testing on different device types and sizes. Yes, you can use these options here, but it's not going to show everything the exact same way. For example, if I go into Launch and I go into the Preview portal, I have quite a few different options, but it doesn't always show me, for example, the way that the iOS devices are going to handle menus compared to Android, which have certain menus built in by default. So you need to make sure that you're testing on multiple device types, and if you're going to use a web app, that you're using functionality from the marketplace that's available for all the different app types that you plan on using. So just because you see something here, for example, embedded map view, it doesn't mean that it will necessarily work on every single device type. There are certain things in the past with AppGyver that have worked on only on specific devices. So you can learn more if you're kind of scrolling through, and let's just say we're on the search page. Now we have quite a few different things, so let's just say we type in HTML and we're looking for an HTML renderer or maybe the web view. So you'll see that this one has quite a few different options, but in the past, some of these have only been able to work on specific device types. So that is one thing that you would want to make sure that you've paid attention to, whether it's the web view or something like the HTML renderer here. So that's another thing, is making sure that it is expected to work on all of those device types. Additionally, that it is actually tested by you on those device types. Sometimes you can find virtual machines online. Now, another thing to note is navigation and ease of use. So it's really easy to sit here and just throw in a default navigation bar, but not always the best use of time. In my opinion, I typically prefer more custom navigation menus, but they can be a little bit more difficult to make. But when you're working through the different themes, once you understand how to use these themes, it becomes much easier. I don't have a design eye myself, but I can tell you that most of the components in AppGyver, when you drop them in, you can double click components, or you can actually go to style or layout or click the little option, kind of like the pencil right next to it, and go edit them in more detail. Some components have more functionality than others. For example, this one here doesn't look like I can, oh, now it's working when I double click. And then we can edit it and change things in a little bit more detail. For example, this button here, it may be that I decide, okay, I like that blue one, but I want to change this one a little bit. So you can choose from these buttons here, which is one option, but you can go under edit and make so many more changes to padding and all of these other options like effects. For example, you'd be surprised at what you can do if you were to, let's just say, change the opacity a bit, and then maybe you want to change the color. Yeah, you do have some defaults here, but you also have the option to go to New Palette and make so much more. So it's very easy to make much more complex user interfaces, and you can edit different text types, colors, you can add in effects with opacity. So there's just so many different options within the themes that it will very much surprise you. Now, another thing to consider, you'll see we have a data tab here. One very important thing is making sure that you're throttling or controlling API calls. I have a more detailed video on how to throttle an API or how to kind of control that a little bit more. Because when you create a data entity like a REST API integration, you can create these and then by default, it will load X amount of times, usually very, very quickly. So you can edit that so that it's not running up your storage cost on Firebase, for example. Now, one of the last things that I will leave you with is just making sure that as you're scrolling through, you're getting advice from other people on the actual usability of your application. There are tons of different ways that you can share it and get advice, but I think that that's really, really critical to make sure that you're making something that works for others. Just because you think it works well, looks good, is fast, doesn't mean that that's the impression from every other user. So I hope that was helpful. If you have any questions, head on over to codelessfix.com. There's tons of free and also paid resources there, and I'll see you all in the next video.